Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Should the heir to the throne be given access to confidential documents so that he's properly briefed? Well, a Freedom of Information request from the campaign group Republic has found out that's exactly what is happening, and they're not best pleased about it. They've even dubbed Prince Charles essentially a minister not attending cabinet. Let's talk now to their chief executive, Graham Smith. Graham Smith, talk us through your campaign to get the information released.
Well, I mean, it's a fairly routine Freedom of Information request that ended up spending, going on for 3 years while the Cabinet Office tried to resist disclosure of what is called the precedent book, which is essentially the manual for the Cabinet on how they manage the Cabinet and deal with Cabinet papers. And buried in that document, and they've only released the first 4 chapters so far, buried in that is this revelation that, as is routine, all papers are sent to Prince Charles.
Is it a great revelation? I mean, the Queen gets this information as head of state. He's the heir to the throne. So will people be that surprised? Will they care?
Well, I think there are a number of problems here because, firstly, Charles isn't the head of state. Even the monarchy's own website says he has no constitutional position as such. He is covered by very privileged secrecy laws, complete exemption from freedom of information. He has unique access not only to ministers but also to all of their cabinet papers. And we know that he wants to lobby ministers to change public policy on a range of different issues.
Hang on, you say you know that.
Well, we know that.
Well, hang on, give me some examples of where policy has changed, if you know it, as a result of his interference.
Just one other very quick point, and then I'll come on to those examples, because we also believe that there is reason to believe that he also influences laws to affect his own interests as Duke of Cornwall. Now, the evidence is essentially, I mean, a lot of it, of course, is still covered up because there's so much secrecy around the monarchy, and we've just released this week our Royal Secrets Report to set this out in a lot more detail. But, we know from the letters released to The Guardian that he is lobbying ministers. We know from former ministers that have spoken to the BBC last year that he is seeking to change public policy. Of course, it's very difficult to pinpoint specific policies that have changed because it's all under wraps.
Right,
now,
but can I just though clear up, because as you said, you made a claim that he's influenced policies that actually directly affect him and the sovereign. But actually, a statement from Buckingham Palace on the matter, I mean, it is their statement, the sovereign has not refused to consent to any bill affecting Crown interests unless advised to do so by ministers. So, I mean, if you believe that statement, they have not turned down anything at all in terms of bill and legislation.
They don't need to, because what happens is that the Duke of Cornwall, Prince Charles, is able to directly influence the legislation process at the very early stages of those discussions, and this is why there is a long list of laws that specifically exempt or privilege the Duchy of Cornwall on whether it's land ownership, whether it's planning, environmental protection, a whole host of laws that give them specific privileges for which there is no legitimate reason. So clearly there is some influence going on behind closed doors.
Graham Smith, thank you very much. Your reaction? Is it regrettable that this has been made public?
I think it's much ado about nothing. It's long established practice that the Queen as head of state does receive cabinet minutes, and in this case the heir to the throne, who would at some point become king, also does so. And I think that is long established practice, and I don't see the problem.
Are you pleased it's been made public?
Oh, it's a good thing it's made public, yes. I personally can see little justification for this, but little harm in it as well.
Right. I mean, should Prince Charles have access to this?
Well, I can see little harm in it, to be honest. I think the question comes when he actively uses his access to lobby on particular policies, and this is why actually the Freedom of Information Act and provisions is so important, and I'd be against watering them down as your government now wants to do.
All right, we'll leave it there.
I've been getting away with it all